But we begin this hour with President Trump seemingly at odds with his own intelligence community over the war, with his director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, contradicting or refusing to back comments her boss has made, including on whether Iran's nuclear program posed an imminent threat, even as the White House used that justification for the war. Under questioning by two separate congressional committees, Gabbard instead claimed it's not her job to assess those threats.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False. This is the worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence, timely, objective, and independent of political considerations.
Did those assessments show timelines for the threats that Iran posed to the United States?
The totality of threats, yes, there were timelines involved where it applied and where that information was available. But again, to your question about the determination of imminence, the president makes that determination based on the totality of information and intelligence.
The bottom line is there was no imminent threat, and you know that, and there's no product that shows that.
It comes as another rift in the intel community over Trump's war has emerged this week. Joe Kent, the director of National Counterterrorism Center, and MAGA diehard resigned from the administration, claiming that there was no imminent threat from Iran. Joining us now, John Brennan, former director of the CIA and MS Now senior national security and intelligence analyst. Director Brennan, thank you so much for being here this morning. I'm wondering, at the National Intelligence University, where people ostensibly get a 101 on whether or not they are supposed to instruct the president on deciding if the threat is imminent or not, is that aligned with what you heard from Tulsi Gabbard?
No, not at all. I was in the intelligence community for about 33 years or so. And throughout that time, it was my understanding and the understanding of all my colleagues that that was one of the primary responsibilities of intelligence analysts, is to identify around the globe those threats to U.S. security and those threats that are imminent so that the policymakers can make the appropriate decisions.
What does imminent mean?
Well, imminent usually means it's coming, it's in the near term, during the Obama administration, we had to make determinations about imminent threat before we would take strikes against terrorists. Usually imminent means that if you don't take advantage of this opportunity now, you're not going to be able to stop whatever threat is coming. So it comes to the point where you have this basically your last chance to do something that's going to mitigate the threat. So imminence means that it's in the near term, it's on the horizon, it's coming, sooner rather than later. But there's no intelligence that I've seen coming out in any type of reporting that suggests that either from a ballistic missile standpoint or from a nuclear standpoint or even from a terrorist standpoint, that there was anything imminent that the United States really needed to go forward with this invasion of Iranian airspace and the bombing campaign. And so therefore, I think the lies are coming fast and furiously as a way to justify the rationale for the war, and there really is no rationale for it.
The idea that the president is the only person that makes the determination of what is imminent, to me, I read that as the DNI kind of CYAing and not wanting to be someone. She doesn't support the war because she has talked about not supporting any kind of bombing in Iran, even criticizing Donald Trump in the past for the idea of doing that. So I see this as her trying to back away from this a little bit. But I do wonder, the presidents that you have worked for, when you said, sir, this is an imminent threat, this thing is happening, or it's not an imminent threat, they listened to you. They listened to the intel. There was also an apparatus around the intel that made sure that the right information was getting to the president so that president could make an informed decision and an intelligent one for the American people. There has been a complete change at the NSC. They have fired all types of folks who usually deal and work on this. How compromised do you feel our intelligence apparatus is right now?
Well, I do think that there's an utter disregard for the intelligence professionals who continue to push forward their assessments about the situation and the nature of that threat. all of the briefings that are at in the White House Situation Room, every policy discussion would start with an intelligence briefing. And then that would then lead to the policy discussion about, okay, if this threat is real and it's imminent, as the intelligence community says, what are our options in order able to address and mitigate that threat? But it's my sense that there's not that type of robust discussion that is really going to take seriously the intelligence assessments that the professionals put forward. So there's an ignorance of the history of the region, ignorance of the situation dynamics, as well as a disregard for the intelligence inputs. And the fact that you have people like Marco Rubio who knows better. He has many, many years of experience in dealing with these issues, but he still allows Donald Trump to go forward with these policy courses that really are just making the situation even uglier and messier.
There also seems to be a complete either disregard or ignorance or whatever, choose your word here, of the impact of this and how long it will take the region, the world to deal with the ramifications of what we've done in Iran.
Well, I think Donald Trump has demonstrated that he is an impetuous individual. You know, it's what his gut tells him, or it's what somebody tells him or encourages him to do. And clearly, in my view, Bibi Netanyahu, who has long wanted to devastate Iran, was the one who really pushed Trump in this direction. And they didn't think through all of the implications and ramifications of this. They didn't take the proper steps to be able to ensure that there's going to be evacuation of U.S. citizens in the area, to better safeguard the Gulf Arab states, to have a consistent public relations message, to be able to explain exactly what the specific goals and objectives were. So I think this is something that was done at the last minute in terms of Trump making a decision, and they didn't go through the usual planning and preparation in order to do something like this. This is war. They're using all different terms for it. This is war, and clearly the Congress was not brought into it at all. So I think across the board, it just demonstrates the unwillingness of this administration to follow through with the appropriate sort of preparations and planning to do something as consequential and as long-lasting as this is.
Director Brennan, I want to get your reaction to two tactical things. The Wall Street Journal reported yet on Thursday the headline, Russia is sharing satellite imagery and drone technology with Iran. And then we have the news that from the Secretary of the Treasury that sanctions have been dropped against Iranian oil. Your reaction to both of those and why the dropping of sanctions on Iranian oil is a significant development?
Well, it should be unsurprising to everyone that Russia would be helping Iran, since Iran has been helping Russia for quite a while in Ukraine, and the United States has been supporting Ukraine. So from Putin's view, well, you do it, you know, for my adversaries, I'm going to do it for your adversaries. And it is important because, you know, the Russians providing the Iranians with targeting information is going to lead to the deaths of U.S. soldiers eventually. Lifting sanctions on Iranian oil, that money, which is now going to flow into Iran, is going to be used in order to continue to sustain the Iranian government, to be able to sustain its military apparatus. And so, therefore, it's very clear that, you know, the Trump administration is trying to alleviate some of these global energy and oil market pressures. But at the same time, what they're doing is allowing Iran to be able to benefit from that relaxation of sanctions. It shows the inconsistencies in these policies.
And I want to pose to you the question I asked you during the break, because I think that this is everyone's greatest fear. But how close to a quagmire do you think we are?
Well, I do think we are basically entering this quagmire, because it's clear to me that the Trump administration doesn't have a viable and attractive off-ramp. It's a situation that's very, very messy. We never should have started this war. But if the Trump administration is going to increase its investment, if it's going to actually bring the Marines in and see the Seas Clark Island or along the coastline of the Strait, we're going to be putting a lot of American servicemen and women in harm's way. And so from my perspective, I think what we need to do is to take a break here and say, wait a minute, we've caused the great devastation of the Iranian military, of the Iranian infrastructure across the board. We need to take a step back here rather than double down and just make the situation worse and get us into a situation where the opening of the Strait is going to be dependent on our military presence in that area. And it's going to make them vulnerable to the Iranians because, again, the Iranians show no indication right now that they're ready to collapse. They still retain the capabilities. So, when I think about Iraq in 2003, and it took us 20 years or so to get out of there, I think this is going to be a very similar situation that if we don't recognize now that we have to stop this military campaign, I think we're going to be in this for a long, long time, and it's going to be very, very dangerous for U.S. national security interests.
I want to play something from Amos Hochstein, former senior advisor to President Biden, on Putin benefiting from his own oil revenue as a result of this war. Let's play that.
Putin's a clear winner. Think about it this way. A month ago, he could sell only 80% of his oil at 20% discount at roughly $50. He is now selling all of his oil at $120. He's not only not getting a discount on his sanctioned oil, he's charging a premium.
It seems like all the bad guys with oil are doing pretty well in this war.
Yeah, for Putin, this is a win-win,
yeah,
clearly across the board. First of all, it's making the U.S. reputation globally and our standing really take some real hits, because this is something that we are doing that, has never been seen as something that the United States would be doing as far as military adventurism like this. Iraq was one thing. This is even worse. But then, in terms of the benefits that Russia is receiving from the oil situation, as you pointed out, the price of Russian oil has gone up.
Yeah.
They're filling their coffers. The relaxation of the sanctions on Russian oil also. So from Putin's benefit perspective, I think he is quite pleased to see the situation and recognizing that the United States is, in fact, entering this quagmire that's going to continue to, I think, saddle us for years to come.